Welcome to our web seminar on HyperTest for Test and Calibration Laboratories certified according to DIN EN ISO IEC 17025. My name is Thomas Rönnpage. I'm Sales and Business Consultant with Verum Software and Systems and would like to tell you how our test management software HyperTest can lend support, especially in the sphere of ISO 17025. First, let's start with the motivation. HyperTest has been employed in a vast number of test departments for many years to support the test process and ensure traceability of test orders. The ISO 17025 standard, by contrast, could be found almost exclusively in calibration laboratories in the past. Only recently, as quality requirements are increasing and implying new verification duties, more and more test departments are facing the requirement to work by ISO 17025 too. The question this context often gives rise to is how far HyperTest can support the ISO 17025 standard. HyperTest is capable of mapping all processes around testing and hence can also support the processes of DIN EN ISO IEC 17025. ISO 17025 describes the management of processes, documents, and information. This also includes requirements on documentation and the administration of documents, verification duties, unique identifications, the creation of reports, release processes, and the management of access rights. The test process management system HyperTest offers the most essential functions like the mapping of processes, the complete assignment of all data, the creation of reports. HyperTest also provides an extremely powerful roles and rights management and many other features. Everybody who has ever been concerned with the ISO 17025 standard has come across this chart. The top arrow describes the physical area, the bottom arrow the administrative area, and the information management is located in the middle between them. This extract shows the administrative task of the scheme. In the first part of our presentation, I'd like to show you how HyperTest can support these requirements. Later on, we will also attend to the other areas and HyperTest's part. The standard describes the requirement that laboratories must establish a procedure to review requests, tenders, and contracts. Requests can automatically be imported to HyperTest or can be created manually. HyperTest maintains catalogs and templates so that it is clear straight away when acquiring the request if the laboratory is capable of fulfilling the requirements. With its integrated master data management, HyperTest makes sure that only adequately qualified staff can review the requests and are authorized to choose proper methods or access if the methods inquired by the customer are suitable. The release process of HyperTest ensures that the test can be carried out as inquired by the customer. In case of deviations, the team member processing the request can refuse release and contact the customer. The communication documents on the request too can be stored in HyperTest in order to ensure that it is 100% traceable at some time in the future. HyperTest manages all the resources involved in a contract. That also includes any persons and the customer. Should it be necessary to alter the contract, all persons involved must be informed and the contract must be reviewed again. This process can also be mapped in HyperTest. ISO 17025 says that the laboratory must apply suitable procedures for all their activities and determining the measurement uncertainty as well as statistical methods for data analysis. With its right-based document management, HyperTest can manage and version the associated documents and place them available to the staff. A higher-level control instance must ensure that the documents are always up to date. As HyperTest manages catalogs of all the procedures and methods the laboratory can offer, the staff can choose only from those methods the laboratory is able to perform and that are valid. Should they depart from a defined method, HyperTest will support them in documenting the reason and in communicating with the customer. Together with the offer, HyperTest also provides the customer with a test plan that states all details of the test, which also includes the methods chosen. The process to verify a new or modified method or procedure can also be mapped in HyperTest. If methods are applied that are not specified in any standard documents, they first need to be validated. This also applies to methods that were modified by the laboratory or are applied outside their intended area of use. The necessary validation process can be mapped in HyperTest specifically as you need it for your area of use and can support the most diverse processes. Sampling procedures, handling and transport of test or calibration items, calibration or evaluation of systematic deviations, variation of controlled parameters. Here, HyperTest by default offers variation parameters, result comparison, determination of the measurement uncertainty. When changing a validated method, it needs to be established what effect the modifications have. As HyperTest manages any information that is relevant to an order, the powerful search and filter functions can visualize the effect very easily. Both the dashboard as well as the report function are suitable means for documentation at this point. Because of the duty to preserve records, various documents need to be retained. The validation method applied, the requirement specification, the determination of the method's performance characteristics, so for example, accuracy, measurement uncertainty, linearity, and so on, the results obtained, and a statement of the method's suitability. HyperTest can manage all these documents in the context of the validation order. In order to ensure the validity of results over time, the standard calls for a monitoring method. Various approaches are suggested, for example, the use of reference materials or traceably calibrated measurement devices, intermediate checks, repetitions, blind tests, etc. Statistical methods also suit to make out tendencies. The monitoring activities are supposed to be scheduled. HyperTest provides several functions to support the assurance of the result's validity. The powerful filter and search function in combination with the analysis function make it possible to compare results that were produced under the same conditions. With onboard evaluation functions and the possibility to integrate external analysis tools, statistical evaluations can be made. The report functionality of HyperTest allows for the documentation of the monitoring activities. Also, the management of validity periods suit to support the planning of upcoming reviews. In this case, the same function is used as for the management of the validity periods of calibrated states. The dashboard makes it easy to visualize trends. One of the ISO 17025 standards central requirements is the evaluation of the measurement uncertainty. Here, all relevant contributions need to be considered and suitable evaluation methods must be applied. You also must evaluate the measurement uncertainty for your own facilities if they are calibrated. As HyperTest knows the resources of the entire measurement chain of every test, the measurement uncertainty can be managed as an additional parameter. HyperTest also supports the possibility to define the measurement chain as a group of resources so that a predetermined measurement uncertainty can be defined for the whole group. This way, the same group can be reused for several tests and the measurement uncertainty is already known. If you want to determine the measurement uncertainty in a test, HyperTest can carry out the necessary calculations. The result of this calculation are assigned to the test and later on transferred to the report. Also, the different effects of the measurement uncertainty can be defined and configured in HyperTest. Before publishing them, the results must be reviewed and released. HyperTest supports a release workflow that is linked to the roles and rights system. This is to ensure that only qualified and authorized staff members can grant release. Depending on the test laboratory's sphere of duties, different result reports have to be generated. Usually, they are test reports, calibration certificates, or sampling reports. All these reports can be generated by HyperTest in coordination with the report generator. The standard defines formal requirements, for example, on the title, as well as content-related requirements for the documents. The information needed is available in HyperTest. The document templates are created with all the fields required by ISO 17025. The generated documents are eventually stored and managed by HyperTest, so they are retained for the long term and can be found using the search functions of HyperTest at any required time. If a statement of conformity is made in a document, additional documentation duties are the result, like a decision rule on the results the conformity statement applies to, for example, and which of the specifications and standards were met or not met. These pieces of information too can be managed in HyperTest in the correct context of the individual test order. The integrated roles and rights management system of HyperTest makes sure that only authorized staff can write opinions and interpretations in the result report. Changes to reports are permissible only in the form of separate documents that are marked as amendment to report, serial number, or otherwise identified. If it is necessary To draw up an entirely new report, it must have a unique identification and a reference to the original report. The integrated document management of HyperTest is able to assign permanent read rights to the initially created report. When amendments or new versions are created, HyperTest automatically establishes a reference to the original report. HyperTest is also capable of managing and versioning the documentation of the required complaint process. An incoming complaint can be acquired in HyperTest and can be linked to the test order. The communication with the complainant is recorded and filed together with the test order complaint for future verification purposes. Of course, HyperTest can also support you in mapping your own complaint process. The second process the standard describes deals with the handling of test and calibration items. This process too can be supported by HyperTest to achieve unambiguous traceability in this area. HyperTest enables the standardized acquisition of the data required for an order. Sampling plan, selection of samples, locations, date and time, stuff, number, quantity, identification, etc. Preparing tasks like conditioning, for example, can be defined and assigned to suitably qualified staff members. Execution of the calibration or test can be started in HyperTest, and any data produced in the process are recorded and can be managed. That also includes the acquisition of environmental conditions like temperature, humidity, etc. HyperTest also supports release processes. The standard also demands comparisons between laboratories or even in the same laboratory. Here too, it's all about test or measurement organization, execution, and assessment. HyperTest is capable of managing tests executed in other laboratories, which enables comparisons between laboratories. HyperTest manages the test requirements and ensures that only defined test methods can be selected for the requirements. Standards for test can be managed in catalogs. In accredited laboratories, temperature and humidity need to be monitored and controlled. HyperTest also acquires this kind of environmental data and stores them together with the other data in the test order. Furthermore, HyperTest manages the test parameters like rotational speed, torque, voltage, power, etc. The test location needs to be managed too. Own laboratory, mobile laboratory, or other. But also the actual measuring points are stored in HyperTest. That includes the exact position at which the temperature sensor was applied. Additionally, HyperTest can consider auxiliary equipment like tubes, petrol brand, bearing grease, etc. This is done in its resource management. The order management of HyperTest supports the inquiry and placement of subcontracts. It can also support the logistics required for external tests. As HyperTest stores all these details in the context of the test order, it is no problem for the system to compare the results. If statements are required on conformity with the standard or specification, the measurement uncertainty needs to be considered. And the decision rule applied must be documented for traceability purposes. HyperTest uses the required calculation instructions in evaluating the measurement uncertainty. As part of the evaluation procedure, the measured data can additionally be transferred to a suitable analysis tool, and the results are returned to HyperTest. The fact that HyperTest assigns all data to the relevant test order makes it easy to compare the results to the requirements. The conformity statement can be generated automatically by the analytical functions of HyperTest, or they can be entered by the user. Here again, HyperTest will make sure that all relevant data and documents are properly assigned to the correct test or calibration order to ensure unambiguous traceability. In case of activities that don't comply with the own procedures or agreed requirements for whatever reason, for example because of environmental conditions, a process must be in place that governs the further proceeding with regards to responsibilities, actions like stop, repeat, suspend, reports, decision, etc. HyperTest can support this process by flagging a test or a task as non-conforming. Moreover, HyperTest can manage the resulting documentation in the context of the test order and can use the rights and roles management to limit the further processing to staff members having the adequate skills. HyperTest can start a quality assurance process at this point that supports the necessary further steps. Make sure that the results are not published, initiate repetition, flag the methods used, up to locking the method until it has been revalidated. There's a vast number of resources in every test or calibration laboratory. Among them are measurement devices, standards, reference materials, just like consumables and auxiliary equipment. Stuff can be regarded as a resource either. The resources can be managed in HyperTest, and HyperTest uses selection catalogs to make sure that only qualified and suitable resources can be used for a test or calibration task. To ensure that only qualified resources are used, it is appropriate to provide them with barcodes or RFID tags. You can then add a process step in HyperTest that checks the resource, in other words, reads the barcode or RFID code before releasing the measurements. If the test or calibration interval of a resource has expired, HyperTest can automatically lock the resource. It can also be locked manually by the staff. HyperTest also manages the documents on metrological traceability together with the resources. In order to ensure that only competent expert staff with suitable qualifications carry out the assigned tasks, it is possible to additionally manage the staff's qualification in the resource management of HyperTest. This includes training or other certificates. Just like a measurement device is automatically locked when its calibration interval has expired, the system can automatically lock personal resources when their certificates have expired. Any associated documents, like verification and calibration certificates, for example, are managed in HyperTest together with the associated resources. There are many documents that need to be managed within the scope of ISO 17025. The powerful roles and right management system of HyperTest makes sure confidential information is protected. HyperTest can link any documents with suitable information from the supported processes. Among them are documentation on the scope of the laboratory's activities, documentation on structure, responsibilities, and methods, documents on demands on facilities, and the management of records on laboratory equipment. In addition, there are documentations about requirements on external products or services, result reports, calibration reports, and sampling reports. HyperTest's powerful search and filter functions support users and make it easy for them to find the documents they need. The version management of HyperTest ensures that they always find the currently valid documents, and expired versions are no longer visible to the normal user. In the roles and rights management system, personnel can be authorized to perform specific tasks. Using the assignments as basis, HyperTest ensures that only suitably qualified personnel is allowed to perform a given activity, such as analyze finding and results, make statements on conformity, give opinions and interpretations, create result reports, access results, or grant releases. DIN EN ISO 17025 demands a whole train of details when it comes to creating reports or other technical records. Among them are recordings of all laboratory activities, all results and calculations, the final report, the persons involved, just like any observations made, any effect on test results and measurement uncertainty should be easy to recognize. It must be possible to repeat a test under the same conditions. And finally, the standard calls for exact traceability. As it stores all those pieces of information in their correct context, HyperTest ensures that the report or technical document, respectively, contains all the required details. The demanded planning of a repetition under identical conditions and the exact traceability too belong to the core functionality of HyperTest. As to the assessment of operativeness of the information management system, the ISO standard presents a number of requirements HyperTest supports in the following way. HyperTest implements access control based on the integrated roles and rights management. All data can be protected against manipulation by assigning write and read rights. Suitable archiving concepts protect them against loss. As HyperTest runs as web client, it can easily be employed under laboratory conditions. It provides internal monitoring functions that ensure operation safety. And an error log automatically documents system failures and states. There are some requirements posed by the DIN EN ISO IEC 17025 that can't be mapped directly in the test management tool HyperTest. That concerns a suitable test to check a participant's performance by predefined criteria. It must be ensured that the laboratory is impartial. An information management system can't undertake organizational tasks like entitling managers, but it can very well administer their rights. The requirements are stored in the business model of HyperTest, but they must be defined beforehand. Administering The management system is no task an information management system can undertake, but HyperTest can support the management of communication documents. HyperTest can manage the staff's competencies and ensures that only qualified employees can be assigned to certain tasks. Moreover, HyperTest can indicate in due time if a qualification needs to be renewed. Trainings and the granting of authorizations must be done in a different way. Access control neither is a regular task for HyperTest, but access rights can be managed in the roles and rights system of HyperTest. So the access control system can retrieve the approval from HyperTest. Now I would like to summarize the content of the seminar. HyperTest is able to map the processes required by the ISO 17025 standard and ensures process safety. For example, by offering only those resources for selection that have been released for a certain task. With the document management, any relevant information is available in the right context. So, when selecting a resource, for example, a link to the associated calibration certificate is available too. The powerful roles and rights system ensures that any activity is carried out by persons who have adequate qualification and powers, for example, to grant releases, give assessments, and so on. The comprehensive resource management can manage and monitor the entire resources, such as test equipment, auxiliary devices, personnel, and so on, so that resources are automatically locked when their calibration interval or certificate has expired. HyperTest also monitors the qualifications of employees with regards to trainings and certificates, so they are informed in due time if certificates or qualifications for certain tasks need to be renewed. By managing catalogs, HyperTest automatically limits the choice of resources, which, on the one hand side, accelerates the process of creating a test order, and on the other hand, makes sure that only permissible resources can be used. Being an integration platform, which not only supports the process and data management, but also provides interfaces to the testbeds, external analysis tools, and higher-level corporate IT solutions, HyperTest is well suited to support test and calibration laboratories that have to work according to ISO 17025 in a holistic approach. And this is the end of today's web seminar. I hope you've enjoyed our presentation. If you would like to learn more about us, you are welcome to visit our homepage or to contact us at the given addresses. Thank you for your attention.